Hello, my name is Richard Jacob from West Pennsylvania Mushroom Club. Hello, this is a quick overview of a walk I did at Braddock's Trail Park on Saturday. And I was out looking for morels, and I did find a couple, but not very many. Just too early there. But I did find a couple of other mushrooms of interest. Dryad saddle, fruits this time of year on elm trees. There was some nice spring polypores and mica caps. You can see the little mica type patterning on the cap there, and when they're mature the gills are quite dark. This is the spring polypores, and it was on a downed log. Quite a nice fruiting. You can see all the pores there underneath. And then there's another part of the same log, just a short distance away, and there's some different mushrooms on there. This is the Blackfoot polypore. The pores on this are really tiny, so you can't really see them with the naked eye. And this is quite a soft when it's a fresh mushroom like this, but it becomes more leathery and not something you can eat. There was also a nice fruiting of oyster mushrooms on this tree. This would be the winter oyster mushroom. And I cut them off and had a look at the underside. The spore print from this is going to be white, and they're all growing in a cluster. They're a little bigger than you would normally like, and you can see they've got a sort of single point of attachment to the log there. And the forest is nice on the right side as you walk into the forest, and there's a lot of elm in there, a lot of it alive, some of it dead and dying. So this is a pretty good place to look for morels, although as I said, I really didn't find that many there, maybe just one or two, and that's just because it's just not quite warm enough at the moment. Hopefully in a couple of weeks time it's warmed up. This was at the top of a south-facing slope. Some of the other things I found was this orange peel fungus. It's really brightly coloured, so quite easy to spot. This is a cup mushroom, an Ascomyces. And my favourite is the eyelash cups, Scutellatier. I collected those as well. So these are some of the edible mushrooms I found. The morels I found mostly at a different location. There were half-free, diminutive morels and yellow morels. And I took the best of those morels, and I had a look on our public website under the recipe section, and typed in morels for recipes. And the recipe I was looking for was this fish with morel and ramp sauce. I happened to have some fish, and it's actually a cream sauce, this one, and I had some ramps. So you cook up the morels and ramp bulbs, add in a cup of white wine, deglaze the pan and cook it down, then add in a cup of cream and all of the ramp greens. Again, just cook it a little bit to combine, let the sauce thicken. I grilled or broiled the fish, and then assembled the dish with some sides, asparagus and corn, and a few potatoes I had. So that's morel and ramp in cream sauce on fish. Here I've got some eyelash cups, and there's 6 different species in the area, and I didn't necessarily know which one this was. So what I did was I put it under the microscope, and there's certain parts you want to look at. So the long marginal hairs. So here I'm looking underneath a dissecting microscope, and I can see the marginal hairs and the shorter hairs that sort of go all the way underneath. And I use the microscope to select an area to cut out and dissect, and then place on a slide and prepare a squash mount. And this is one of the spores, and I'm going around looking at the spores, and as I change the focus, you can see some of the tiny wart patterns. This is in lactocotton phenol blue. This is the spring polypore. The spores aren't very exciting for that one. And this is the orange peel cup mushroom, and these spores are really pretty. They have quite big ornamentation on them. And so that's looking down the microscope, which I was taking pictures. And then once I've got the pictures, I had to calculate the measurements or create the measurements there. And so what I'm doing is I'm measuring these long marginal hairs at the edge of the cups. This is the eyelash cups, and adjusting the magnification setting. And then once I've done that, you can measure the length of the marginal hairs. So they're all around 1400 micrometers. I did a curved measurement there, and this makes the hair about 40 microns longer, but it gives us an idea, and that's close enough for what I need when I'm looking at the key. The other thing I was looking at where the arrows are is the forking of the roots of the marginal hairs, and in this case there's 2 or 3 forks, and I'm also taking the width of the marginal hairs. And all of these measurements are going to go into a key to help me identify this particular species. Again, measuring the spores, length and width, and you want to do quite a few different spores. Here you go, you've got 4 in 1 image. I always add a little scale bar as well. And then I'm also looking, this is the orange peel fungus again, these very pretty little spores. And so this is the still picture that I collected earlier when looking down the microscope. Adding a scale bar. And so what I'll typically do is go through, take quite a few images of different spores, and then go measure them up one after the other, and take that information and just confirm that it is correct for that species. And sometimes you'll find it's different, and that gives you a clue that maybe it's not the species you think it is, that there's actually some couple of different species going under the same name, and that's the case with these eyelash cups. For the eyelash cups, we found at least 6 different species in our area. Again, like I say, this is the orange peel spore. So I'm doing length and width, and then here I'm going to get the width of the ornamentation. I use a little tool here, draw a couple of straight lines either side, and then it will calculate the width in between them. There's the scale bar. And that's a sort of image that can then be used and put onto iNaturalist. I also had a look at the ASCII for this orange peel fungus. You can see that one actually only has 7 in there. One of them has got out, I guess. And here you can see the ASCII mixed with other tissue, and that had the sort of coloration in the orange coloration. And once you've measured a lot of spores, then you want to calculate the average length and width, and also the Q value, which is the length divided by the width. And so I look at the images one by one and enter the values into a spreadsheet. And once you have enough, then you should have a pretty good average values. I think there was one outlier in this set that was particularly smaller than the other spores. I ended up removing that one. And then you take those measurements into this key. This is by Malcolm Greaves. He's a UK mycologist, and you can start filling in the key with the average lengths for the spores, the Q value, and other observation or characteristics about the mushroom. And as you fill in those values, it changes the scoring for the different species. And after a while, the more observations or the more values you add, the clearer it becomes on what the actual species is. So here I'm going to take the length of the hairs and the width. I think I realized that I hadn't actually measured the width of the wall of the hair. Go and do that and get that calculation and value, that measurement and value. And then once I have all those values in, you can see one of the species has risen to the top. You should be able to see that in this case it's Scutellaria syrinter. So I've actually seen that before. Nice to confirm it again.